The Zorak were a fierce alien race. They had shiny silver skin that glowed under the stars and long, sharp claws that could cut through metal. Their home planet, Zorath, was a dusty, rocky world filled with tall towers and buzzing machines. The Zorak thought they were the strongest in the galaxy. They believed no one could challenge them. So when they found a small human mining colony on a faraway planet called Dusthaven, they decided to show their power. They thought it would be easy. They were wrong. Dusthaven was a quiet place. It was a tiny planet with red sand and deep caves where humans dug for shiny crystals. These crystals powered spaceships and lights across the galaxy. The humans who lived there worked hard. They wore dusty suits and helmets to protect themselves from the hot sun and sandy winds. They were not soldiers. They were miners, families, and friends who just wanted to do their jobs and live peacefully. But the Zorak didn't care about that. One night, when the two moons of Dusthaven hung low in the sky, the Zorak attacked. Their ships, shaped like giant black spikes, swooped down without warning. The ground shook as they landed. The humans didn't have time to run or hide. The Zorak soldiers, tall and frightening with glowing red eyes, marched into the colony. They grabbed 10 humans, 5 men and 5 women from their homes. These people were not fighters. They were workers who fixed machines, cooked meals, or taught children in the small school. The Zorak didn't ask their names or why they were there. They didn't care. The Zorak took the 10 humans to a deep pit at the edge of the colony. This pit was hidden behind a wall of rocks, far from the lights of the mining camp. It was a secret place where no one would look. The Zorak lined the humans up. They didn't give them a chance to speak. They didn't explain why. With a single command, the Zorak soldiers raised their weapons and ended the lives of those 10 people. The pit became their grave. No trial, no names, just silence. The Zorak thought no one would find out. They believed the galaxy was too big, too busy, to notice what happened on a tiny planet like Dusthaven. They thought the humans were weak and alone, with no one to care about them. They were sure their crime would stay hidden. But they didn't know the galaxy was watching. Faraway planets with their own people and leaders heard whispers of the attack. Ships passing by caught strange signals from Dusthaven. And back on Earth, people were listening. They always listened when their own were in trouble. The Zorak leader, a tall figure named Kral Vorn, stood on his ship and smiled. He had a long face with sharp teeth and a voice like grinding stones. "Humans are nothing," he said to his soldiers. "They dig in the dirt like bugs. No one will miss them." His soldiers nodded, their claws clicking on the metal floor. They thought Kral Vorn was right. They thought no one would care. But they didn't understand humans. They didn't know what happens when you hurt someone's family. On Dusthaven, the other miners were scared. They hid in their homes, whispering to each other. They didn't know why the Zorak came or why they took those 10 people. The colony was quiet now, too quiet. The machines stopped humming. The lights flickered. The children didn't play outside anymore. Everyone felt the weight of what happened, even if they didn't know the whole story. The air was heavy with fear, but also with something else, anger. Far across the stars, on a green and blue planet called Earth, people started to hear about Dusthaven. Earth was a busy place, full of cities, forests, and oceans. It was home to billions of humans who built ships, made art, and explored the stars. Earth wasn't like Zorath. It wasn't cold or cruel. It was a place where people cared about each other, even those far away. When the news of the 10 humans reached Earth, it wasn't loud at first. It was a quiet message sent from a small radio on Dusthaven. "Help," it said. "The Zorak came, they took our people." That message traveled through space, bouncing from one station to another. It reached a small outpost on a moon, then a bigger station near Mars. Soon it landed on Earth in a room full of screens and blinking lights. The people in that room were not soldiers or kings. They were listeners, people trained to hear cries for help from across the galaxy. They sat up straight when they heard the message. Their faces grew serious. They knew something terrible had happened. The listeners sent the news to others. They told leaders, scientists, and families. The story spread like fire. 10 humans are gone, they said. The Zorak did it. People on Earth stopped what they were doing. They gathered in homes, in meeting halls, in schools. They talked about Dusthaven. They asked questions. Who were those 10 people? Why did the Zorak hurt them? What would happen next? The galaxy might have been big, but Earth was connected. Every human felt the loss, even if they didn't know the names of the people in that pit. The Zorak didn't know about the listeners. They didn't know about the radios or the messages. They thought their secret was safe. They flew their ships back to Zorath, laughing and planning their next move. Kral Vorn stood on his ship's bridge looking at the stars. "We showed them," he said. "No one will dare stand against us now." His soldiers cheered, their voices echoing in the dark. They thought they had won. They thought they were untouchable. But they didn't see the small signals crossing the stars. They didn't hear the whispers on other planets. The galaxy was not as quiet as they thought. Other alien races, some with feathers, some with scales, heard about Dusthaven. They didn't like the Zorak. They didn't trust them. The Zorak were bullies, always taking what they wanted. Now the galaxy was watching them, waiting to see what would happen next. Would the humans fight back? Would anyone care about 10 miners on a forgotten planet? On Earth, the anger grew. People didn't shout or wave flags. They didn't need to. They were thinking, planning, talking. The loss of those 10 humans wasn't just a crime, it was a spark. It woke something up in the hearts of humans everywhere. They weren't just miners. They were brothers, sisters, friends. They were part of Earth, and Earth never forgot its own. The Zorak made a big mistake. They thought humans were weak because they didn't have claws or glowing eyes. They thought humans were alone because they lived on a small planet. But humans were not alone. They had each other. They had ships, machines, and minds that could solve problems. They had hearts that didn't give up. The Zorak thought they could hide their crime in a pit, but the truth was already out. It was moving through the stars, reaching every corner of the galaxy. Kral Vorn sat in his chair, looking at a map of the galaxy. He marked Dusthaven with a red dot. "Done," he said, thinking the matter was finished. He didn't know that Earth was listening. He didn't know that the humans were already talking, planning, moving. The silence he left in that pit was not the end. It was the beginning. The galaxy was not as empty as the Zorak thought. Other planets had their own stories about the Zorak. Some had been attacked. Some had lost friends. They didn't like what happened on Dusthaven, but they were afraid to act. The Zorak were strong, with ships that could destroy cities and weapons that could burn worlds. Who would stand up to them? Who would care about 10 humans on a dusty planet? Earth cared. The people of Earth didn't need to be loud to be strong. They didn't need claws to fight back. They had something the Zorak didn't understand. They had each other. The message from Dusthaven wasn't just a cry for help. It was a call to action. The humans heard it and they were ready to answer. The Zorak thought they had won. They thought no one would notice. But the galaxy was watching and Earth was listening. The silence in that pit would not last. Something was coming, something the Zorak could not stop. The humans were awake and they were ready to show the galaxy what happens when you hurt their people. The 10 humans taken by the Zorak on Dusthaven weren't just miners. They were people with families, friends, and dreams. Each one had someone who loved them, someone who would not forget them. These weren't just random people. They were important to others, and some of those others were very powerful. The Zorak thought they could hurt these humans and walk away. They didn't know they had picked the wrong people to mess with. One of the humans was a woman named Leela Carter. Leela was a mechanic who fixed the big digging machines on Dusthaven. She had short brown hair and a smile that made everyone feel better. She wasn't tall or strong, but her hands could make any broken tool work again. Layla had a sister named Emma, who lived far away on Earth. Emma wasn't just any sister. She was a genius scientist who built war machines for Earth's defense. Emma's machines were fast ships and strong robots that could protect cities. When Emma heard Leela was gone, her heart broke. She stopped her work in the lab, looked at a picture of Leela, and promised to make things right. Another human was a man named Jiro Tanaka. Jiro was a cook in the Dusthaven camp. He made warm meals for the miners, like soup and bread, even when food was hard to find. His laugh was loud and he told funny stories to the kids in the colony. Jiro was loved by a woman named Captain Amara Lee. Amara wasn't on Dusthaven. She was a commander who led a fleet of spaceships for Earth. Her ships patrolled the stars, keeping trade routes safe. When Amara got the news about Jiro, she was on her ship, staring at a map of the galaxy. Her hands tightened on the controls. Jiro was her best friend, and she wasn't going to let the Zorak get away with this. Then there was Maria Gomez, a teacher in the Dusthaven school. Maria taught the miners' children how to read, count, and dream about the stars. She had a kind voice and always carried a small book of poems in her pocket. Maria was the mother of a young man named Carlos, who wasn't on Dusthaven. Carlos was a hacker, one of the best on Earth. He could break into computer systems and find secrets no one else could. When Carlos learned his mom was gone, he sat at his desk, his screens glowing in the dark. He didn't cry. He started typing. The Zorak didn't know it, but Carlos was already looking for them. Another miner was a man named Malik Jones. Malik was a builder who made the colony's home strong against Dusthaven's storms. He was quiet but always helped others, carrying heavy loads or fixing leaks. Malik had a brother named Omar, who was a leader on a space station called Horizon. Omar wasn't a soldier, but he made big decisions about trade and supplies for many planets. When Omar heard about Malik, he stood at a window, looking out at the stars. His face was calm, but his mind was racing. He knew the Zorak had made a mistake. There was also a young woman named Aisha Patel. Aisha was a nurse who took care of sick or hurt miners. She always had a bandage or a kind word ready. Aisha was engaged to a man named Ravi who wasn't on Dusthaven. Ravi was an engineer who designed new kinds of energy shields for Earth's ships. When he got the message about Aisha, he was in a workshop, surrounded by tools and blueprints. He dropped his wrench and sat down, his hands shaking. Ravi wasn't a fighter, but he was smart. He started thinking about how to use his skills to hit back at the Zorak. Another human was a man named Tom Nguyen. Tom was a driver who moved the crystals from the mines to the ships. He loved music and played a small guitar when the workday was done. Tom had a daughter named Lily who lived on Earth. Lily was a pilot, one of the fastest in Earth's Space Force. She flew scout ships that could zip through asteroid fields without a scratch. When Lily heard about her dad, she was in her cockpit checking her ship. She stopped, closed her eyes, and made a promise. The Zorak would see her soon. Then there was Elena Ruiz, a gardener who grew food in Dusthaven's greenhouses. Elena knew how to make plants grow in tough places, and her vegetables kept the colony fed. Elena had a best friend named Sophia who was a diplomat. Sophia traveled to other planets, talking to alien leaders to keep peace. When Sophia heard about Elena, she was in a meeting with a group of aliens. She excused herself, walked to a quiet room, and started making calls. Sophia knew how to talk, but she also knew how to plan. The Zorak didn't scare her. Another miner was a man named Leo Kim. Leo was a map maker who explored Dusthaven's caves to find new crystal deposits. He was brave and always carried a flashlight and a notebook. Leo had a cousin named Hana who was a spy for Earth. Hana worked in secret, sneaking onto alien planets to learn their plans. When Hana got the news about Leo, she was hiding on a Zorak outpost. Her eyes narrowed as she listened to the message. She slipped her communicator back into her pocket and started moving. The Zorak didn't know she was there. There was also Sarah Brown, a radio operator who sent messages from Dusthaven to other planets. Sarah was cheerful, always talking to faraway friends through her headset. Sarah had a husband named James who was a general in Earth's army. James trained soldiers to protect human colonies. When James heard about Sarah, he was in a training camp, watching recruits run drills. He stopped the exercise and called his team together. His voice was steady, but his eyes were fierce. The Zorak had taken someone he loved, and he was ready to act. The last human was a boy named Samir Ali. Samir was only 16, helping his parents in the mines. He wasn't supposed to be in the pit, but the Zorak didn't care about his age. Samir had an uncle named Tariq who was a trader. Tariq flew cargo ships between planets, carrying food, tools, and news. Tariq was on a trade route when he heard about Samir. He landed his ship on a nearby moon and sat in silence. Then he opened his ship's computer and started sending messages to every contact he had. Tariq wasn't a warrior, but he knew people, and those people would help. Each of these 10 humans was special. They weren't just workers in a dusty colony. They were sisters, brothers, mothers, fathers, friends. They had lives, stories, and people who loved them. The Zorak thought they could take them away and no one would notice. They thought humans were small and weak, like ants you could step on. But ants have colonies, and colonies fight back. These humans were connected to people who were strong, smart, and ready to do something. The Zorak leader, Kral Vorn, didn't know any of this. He sat on his ship looking at reports of the attack. 10 humans gone, he said to his soldiers. No one will care. His soldiers nodded, their claws clicking. They thought it was over. They thought they had won. But they didn't know about Emma, the scientist, or Amara, the commander. They didn't know about Carlos, the hacker, or Omar, the leader. They didn't know about Ravi, Lily, Sophia, Hana, James, or Tariq. They didn't know that every human they took had someone waiting, someone planning, someone who would not let this go. On Dusthaven, the other miners were still scared. They stayed in their homes, whispering about the attack. They missed Leela's smile, Gyro's stories, Maria's lessons. They missed Malik's help, Aisha's care, Tom's music. They missed Alina's food, Leo's bravery, Sarah's voice, and Samir's energy. The colony felt empty without them, but the miners weren't just sad. They were angry. They sent more messages, telling the galaxy what happened. They didn't know if anyone would listen, but they kept trying. Far away on Earth and other places, the people who loved those 10 humans were moving. Emma was in her lab sketching new machines. Amara was in her ship plotting a course. Carlos was hacking into Zorak systems looking for weaknesses. Omar was talking to leaders, gathering support. Ravi was building shields. Lily was flying her ship. Sophia was making deals. Hannah was sneaking closer. James was training his soldiers. Tarek was spreading the word. They didn't know each other, but they all had the same goal: make the Zorak pay. The Zorak thought they had hurt strangers, people who didn't matter. They were wrong. They had hurt the wrong people. These humans were loved, and their loved ones were powerful. The galaxy was starting to buzz with their names. Leela, Gyro, Maria, Malik, Aisha, Tom, Elena, Leo, Sarah, Samir. Those names weren't forgotten. They were a spark, and that spark was growing into a fire. Kral Vorn looked at his map of the galaxy, smiling. He thought he had shown the humans who was boss. He thought no one would care about a small colony. But the galaxy was talking, and Earth was listening. The Zorak had started something they couldn't stop. The people who loved those 10 humans were coming, and they weren't going to be quiet. The Zorak thought they had won when they hurt the 10 humans on Dusthaven. They thought no one would care about a small mining colony so far away. But humans didn't stay quiet. They didn't send messages or make speeches. Instead, they started to act. Their response was silent but strong, like a storm building in the distance. The Zorak didn't see it coming, and that was exactly what the humans wanted. It began with a Zorak ship called the Iron Claw. The Iron Claw was a big, shiny spacecraft that carried weapons and supplies for the Zorak army. It was flying through a dark part of space called the Void, where stars were few and far between. The Void was quiet, with only the hum of the ship's engines. The Zorak crew felt safe. They were laughing, eating their strange, slimy food and talking about their victory on Dusthaven. Then, without a sound, the Iron Claw vanished. No explosion. No distress call. Just gone. The Zorak on other ships waited for a signal, but none came. They checked their screens, but the Iron Claw was nowhere to be found. Far away, on a small human outpost near the Void, a team of engineers smiled. They weren't soldiers. They were workers who knew how to build and break things. One of them, a young man named Carlos, was the hacker who loved Maria, the teacher from Dusthaven. Carlos had found a way into the Zorak ship's computer. He didn't need a gun. He used his laptop to send a tiny signal that turned off the ship's power. The Iron Claw floated in the dark, its crew confused and helpless. The humans didn't hurt anyone. They just took the ship and hid it in a secret spot. The Zorak didn't know where to look. The next move happened on a Zorak supply station called Red Fang. Red Fang was a giant metal platform floating near a gas planet. It stored food, fuel, and tools for the Zorak army. Hundreds of Zorak workers lived there, loading crates and fixing machines. One morning, the lights on Red Fang flickered and died. The machines stopped. The doors locked. The workers ran to their control room, but the screens were blank. No one knew what was wrong. The station was shut down and no one could get in or out. The Zorak sent ships to check, but when they arrived, the station was silent, like a ghost town. This was the work of Emma, the scientist who lost her sister Layla. Emma was on Earth, far from Red Fang, but her mind was sharp. She had built a small device, no bigger than a lunchbox, that could mess with Zorak technology. She gave it to a pilot named Lily, who lost her dad, Tom, on Dusthaven. Lily flew a tiny ship, so fast it was hard to see, and dropped Emma's device near Red Fang. The device sent out a signal that froze the station's systems. The Zorak workers were stuck, their supplies useless. The humans didn't fire a single shot. They didn't need to. The Zorak leaders heard about the Iron Claw and Red Fang. They sat in their tall towers on Zorath, their home planet, and scratched their shiny heads. "It's nothing," said Kral Vorn, the Zorak leader with sharp teeth. "Just bad luck." His soldiers nodded, but their red eyes blinked nervously. They laughed to hide their worry. A missing ship, a broken station. These things happen, they told themselves. But deep down, they felt something was off. The galaxy wasn't as quiet as it used to be. Meanwhile, on Earth, more humans were moving. Omar, the brother of Malik, was a leader on the Horizon space station. He didn't fight with weapons, but he knew how to talk to people. Omar sent messages to other planets, not Zorak ones, but friendly ones with people who didn't like the Zorak. He told them about Dusthaven. He told them about the 10 humans. Some of these planets sent small ships to watch Zorak bases. They didn't attack, but they watched, and the Zorak didn't like being watched. Then another strange thing happened. A Zorak factory on a rocky moon stopped working. This factory made parts for their weapons, like lasers and shields. One day, the machines just turned off. The Zorak workers checked the wires and buttons, but everything was dead. They didn't know that Ravi, the engineer who loved Aisha, had helped make this happen. Ravi was on Earth, working in a workshop full of tools. He had designed a tiny robot, smaller than a bug, that could sneak into machines and break them. A trader named Tarek, Samir's uncle, flew these robots to the moon in his cargo ship. The robots crawled into the factory's systems and shut everything down. The Zorak had no weapons to build that day. These attacks were small, but they were smart. The humans didn't want a big war. They didn't want to destroy planets or hurt lots of people. They wanted the Zorak to feel confused, to feel weak. Every time a ship disappeared or a station went dark, the Zorak got a little more nervous. Their laughter got quieter. Their claws clicked faster on the floor. Kral Vorn stood in his command room, looking at a map of the galaxy. He marked the void and Red Fang with red dots. "Find out what's happening," he growled. His soldiers ran to obey, but they didn't know where to start. On Dusthaven, the miners started to notice things. They were still scared, hiding in their homes, but they saw strange lights in the sky. A human ship, small and fast, flew over the colony one night. It dropped a crate of food and medicine, then left before anyone could see it. The miners opened the crate and found a note. It said, "We're coming, stay strong." The miners didn't know who sent it, but they felt hope. Someone out there was fighting for them. That ship belonged to Captain Amara Lee, who loved Jiro. Amara was far away, leading her fleet of ships. She didn't want the Zorak to know she was watching Dusthaven. Her fleet stayed hidden behind a nearby asteroid field, waiting and planning. Amara sent her fastest pilots to drop supplies to the miners. She wanted them to know they weren't forgotten. She also wanted the Zorak to know that Dusthaven wasn't theirs anymore. Another small attack happened on a Zorak communication tower. This tower sent messages between Zorak ships and bases. It was tall, made of black metal, and stood on a frozen planet. One night the tower went silent. No messages went out. No messages came in. The Zorak workers tried to fix it, but the wires were cut and the computers were scrambled. This was Hana's work. Hana, Leo's cousin, was a spy. She had snuck onto the frozen planet, hiding in the shadows. She used a small knife and a handheld device to break the tower. When she was done, she slipped away, leaving no trace. The Zorak were starting to feel trapped. Their ships couldn't talk to each other, their factories couldn't build, their stations couldn't move. Král Vorn called a meeting in his tower. His soldiers stood in a circle, their red eyes glowing in the dark room. "Who is doing this?" Král Vorn shouted. His voice shook the walls. No one answered. They didn't know it was Carlos, Emma, Lily, Ravi, Tarek, Amara, and Hana. They didn't know it was humans working together, striking quietly. On Earth, more people joined the fight. Sophia, Elena's friend, was a diplomat. She didn't fight with ships or robots. She fought with words. Sophia visited a planet called Vara where the people had feathers and loved peace. She told them about Dusthaven. The Vara people listened, their feathers puffing up in anger. They didn't like the Zorak either. They promised to stop trading with the Zorak, which meant no more fuel or food for Zorak ships. This wasn't a big attack, but it hurt the Zorak. They needed those supplies. James, Sarah's husband, was a general. He didn't send soldiers yet, but he trained them harder. His camp on Earth was busy, with young men and women learning to fly ships and use tools. James walked among them, his face serious. He told them about Dusthaven, about the 10 humans. His soldiers listened, their eyes wide. They wanted to help. James wasn't ready to send them into battle, but he was getting them ready. The Zorak would see them soon. Every small attack sent a message. A missing ship, a dark station, a broken factory, a silent tower. The humans were saying, "We see you, we know what you did." The Zorak laughed at first, but their laughter was fading. They started checking their ships twice, locking their doors, watching the stars. They didn't know where the next attack would come from. They didn't know it was humans, working in secret, striking where it hurt most. The galaxy was starting to talk. Other planets heard about the Iron Claw and Red Fang. They heard about the factory and the tower. They didn't know who was doing it, but they were curious. Some whispered, "It's the humans." Others said, "No, humans are weak." But the whispers grew louder. The Zorak weren't as strong as they thought. Something had started and it wasn't going to stop. The Zorak were used to being the strongest in the galaxy. Their shiny silver skin and sharp claws made them feel unstoppable. They thought no one could challenge them, especially not humans. But things were changing. Their ships were disappearing. Their stations were going dark. At first they laughed it off, saying it was just bad luck. But one Zorak leader, General Vark, wasn't laughing. He noticed something was wrong. He saw a pattern in the reports piling up on his desk. This wasn't random. It was a plan. The humans weren't scared. They were getting ready. General Vark was different from other Zorak leaders. He was older, with scars across his silver face from battles long ago. His red eyes were sharp, always watching, always thinking. He wasn't like Král Vorn, who bragged and shouted. Vark was quiet, but his mind worked fast. He sat in his command room on Zorath, the Zorak home planet. The room was dark, with walls covered in screens showing maps and messages. Vark's claws tapped on a table as he read the latest reports. A ship gone in the void, a supply station locked down, a factory silent, a communication tower broken. He leaned back in his chair, his eyes narrowing. Something was happening and he didn't like it. The first report that caught Vark's attention was about the Iron Claw, the ship that vanished. The crew hadn't sent a distress call. They hadn't fought back. They were just gone. Vark sent a scout ship to the void to look for clues, but it found nothing, no wreckage, no signals. The void was a big, empty place, but ships didn't just disappear. Vark marked the spot on his map with a glowing red dot. He stared at it, thinking, who could do this? Pirates? Rebels? He didn't think so. Pirates left messes. Rebels left messages. This was too clean, too quiet. Then came the report about Red Fang, the supply station. It was a big loss. Red Fang held enough food and fuel to keep Zorak's ships flying for months. Now it was useless, its workers trapped inside, its machines dead. Vark read the message from the station's commander. Power failed, systems locked, no warning. Vark's claws scratched the table. He sent engineers to fix it, but they couldn't get in. The doors wouldn't open. The computers wouldn't start. Vark added another red dot to his map. 2 dots now, too close for comfort. More reports came in. A factory on a moon had stopped making weapons. A communication tower on a frozen planet had gone silent. Each time there was no fight, no explosion, just quiet failure. Vark's soldiers tried to explain it. Maybe the machines are old, one said. Maybe the workers made mistakes, said another. Vark didn't believe them. Machines didn't all break at once. Workers didn't all fail together. He stood up and walked to a window, looking out at Zorath's dusty sky. His tail twitched, a sign he was worried. Vark called a meeting with his top officers. They gathered in a round room with a big table. The officers were younger, with shiny claws and eager eyes. They wanted to please Vark, but they were nervous. He pointed to the map on a screen showing the red dots. "Tell me what this is," he said, his voice low. The officers looked at each other. One spoke up. "It's just accidents, General. Nothing to worry about." Vark slammed his claw on the table, making everyone jump. "Accidents don't happen like this," he growled. "Look at the timing, look at the places. This is a plan." The officers whispered to each other. They didn't want to believe it. The Zorak were strong. Their ships were fast. Their weapons were deadly. Who would dare attack them? Vark pointed to a small dot on the map labeled Dusthaven. "It started here," he said. 10 humans, we thought they were nothing, but now our ships are gone. Our stations are dark. This is no accident. This is revenge." The word revenge made the room quiet. The officers shifted in their seats. They remembered Dusthaven. They remembered Kral Vorn's orders to show the humans who was boss. They thought it was over, that no one would care about 10 miners. But Vark's words made them think again. Could humans do this? Humans were soft, with no claws or armor. They lived on a green planet called Earth, far from Zorath. They were miners, builders, not fighters, but Vark wasn't so sure. Vark sent out more scouts. He told them to check every Zorak base, every ship, every station. "Look for anything strange," he said. "Don't trust the machines, don't trust the silence." The scouts left in small ships, their engines roaring. Vark stayed in his command room reading old reports about humans. He found stories of Earth, of wars they fought, of machines they built. Humans were clever, he realized. They didn't always fight with claws, they fought with plans. One scout came back with news. A small Zorak outpost near a star called Vexus had stopped sending messages. Vark sent a team to check. They found the outpost empty. The workers were gone, the computers dead. Food was left on tables like everyone had left in a hurry. But there was no blood, no damage. Vark's tail twitched again. He added another red dot to his map. This wasn't just a few accidents. This was a wave rolling across the galaxy, hitting the Zorak where they felt safe. Vark started to see the pattern. The attacks were small but smart. They hit places the Zorak needed: ships for fighting, stations for supplies, factories for weapons, towers for talking. Each loss made the Zorak weaker. Vark thought about the humans. He remembered the message from Dusthaven, the one that said, "Help." The Zorak came. He had laughed at it then, but now it felt like a warning. The humans weren't crying for help anymore. They were striking back. Vark went to see Kral Vorn. The leader's tower was tall, with black walls and glowing lights. Kral Vorn sat on a high chair, his claws resting on a table. He was eating a slimy green fruit, his sharp teeth crunching. "What is it, Vark?" he asked, sounding bored. Vark stood straight, his red eyes steady. "We have a problem," he said. He showed Kral Vorn the map with its red dots. "Our ships are vanishing. Our stations are failing. It's the humans." Kral Vorn laughed, his voice like thunder. "Humans, those weak creatures, they dig in dirt, Vark, they can't hurt us." He waved a claw, dismissing the idea, but Vark didn't move. "Look at the pattern," he said. "They're not fighting like us. They're planning. They're hitting us quietly, and it's working." Kral Vorn stopped laughing. He leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "What do you want me to do?" he asked. Vark took a deep breath. "Double the guards on every base. Check every ship before it flies. Fix the stations as fast as we can, and watch Earth. That's where this is coming from." Kral Vorn leaned back, thinking. He didn't like being told what to do, but Vark's words made sense. He nodded. "Do it," he said. Vark bowed and left, his mind already racing with plans. Back in his command room, Vark sent new orders. Every Zorak base would have more soldiers. Every ship would be checked for strange devices. Engineers would work day and night to fix Red Fang and the factory. Vark also sent a spy ship toward Earth, hidden in a cloud of space dust. He wanted to know what the humans were doing. Were they building ships, training soldiers? He needed answers. But the reports kept coming. A Zorak fuel depot near a nebula stopped working. Its tanks were empty, its workers confused. A patrol ship near a black hole lost power and drifted away. Each new red dot on Vark's map made his stomach twist. He wasn't scared, not yet, but he was worried. The Zorak were strong, but strength didn't help against an enemy you couldn't see. Vark's soldiers started to feel it too. They whispered in their barracks, their claws clicking nervously. "What's happening?" one asked. "Why do our machines keep breaking?" said another. They looked at the stars, wondering if something was out there watching them. They didn't know it was humans: Carlos with his hacks, Emma with her devices, Lily with her fast ship, Ravi with his robots, Hana with her stealth. They didn't know, but they felt the pressure. On Zorath, life changed. The streets were quieter. Workers moved faster, their eyes darting around. Ships flew closer together like animals in a herd. The Zorak weren't laughing anymore. They were checking their weapons, locking their doors, waiting for the next report. Kral Vorn stayed in his tower, but even he was uneasy. He called Vark every day, asking for updates. "Find them," he said. "Stop this." Vark nodded, but he knew it wasn't that simple. Vark stood at his window, looking at the stars. He thought about Dusthaven, about the 10 humans. He hadn't been there, but he knew what happened. He wondered if that was the spark, the moment that started this storm. He didn't hate humans, but he didn't trust them either. They were small, soft, but clever. Too clever. Vark's claws tapped the window. He knew the humans weren't scared. They were ready, and that made them dangerous. The galaxy was watching. Other planets heard about the Zorak's troubles. Some smiled, glad to see the bullies struggle. Others stayed quiet, afraid to pick a side. But everyone knew something was changing. The Zorak weren't as strong as they seemed. And the humans, they were more than miners. They were planners, fighters, avengers. General Vark saw it first, and he knew this was only the beginning. The Zorak thought they had scared the humans into silence after what happened on Dusthaven. They thought Earth was far away, too weak to fight back. But they didn't know what was happening on the blue and green planet. Deep underground, in a hidden place, humans were coming together. Leaders, thinkers, and fighters met in secret. There were no flags waving or cameras flashing. No crowds cheered, just a group of people in a quiet room. They weren't there to talk about their sadness. They had lost family, and now they wanted to win. The meeting took place in a bunker beneath a mountain on Earth. The bunker was old, built long ago for emergencies. Its walls were thick stone and its doors were heavy steel. No one could see inside from the outside. The air was cool, and the only sound was the soft hum of machines keeping the lights on. The room had a big round table, scratched and worn from years of use. Around it sat people who didn't look like heroes. They wore simple clothes, not uniforms. But their eyes were sharp, and their hearts were strong. One person at the table was Emma Carter, the scientist who lost her sister, Leela. Emma's hair was tied back, and her hands held a small tablet covered in notes. She wasn't thinking about her lab full of war machines right now. She was thinking about how to make the Zorak pay. Next to her sat Captain Amara Lee, who loved Jiro, the cook from Dusthaven. Amara's face was calm, but her fingers tapped the table, ready for action. Her fleet of ships was waiting in space, hidden and ready. Carlos Gomez was there too, the hacker who lost his mom, Maria. Carlos sat with his laptop open, its screen glowing in the dim light. He didn't talk much, but his fingers moved fast, pulling information from Zorak systems. Across from him was Omar Jones, Malik's brother, the leader from the Horizon space station. Omar leaned forward, his deep voice steady as he shared ideas. He knew how to make deals and move supplies, and he wanted to use that to hurt the Zorak. Ravi Patel, the engineer who lost Aisha, sat quietly sketching on a piece of paper. His drawings showed new shields and gadgets to protect human ships. Lily Nguyen, the pilot who lost her dad, Tom, leaned back in her chair, her arms crossed. She was ready to fly anywhere, anytime. Sophia Ruiz, Alina's friend, the diplomat, took notes in a small book. She knew how to talk to other planets and get their help. Hana Kim, Leo's cousin, the spy, stood near the door, watching everyone. She had just come back from a Zorak outpost, her face serious but fearless. General James Brown, Sarah's husband, sat at one end of the table. His gray hair was short and his eyes were tired but focused. He trained soldiers and he knew how to plan a fight. At the other end was Tariq Ali, Samir's uncle, the trader. Tariq's hands were rough from years of flying cargo ships, but his smile was warm. He knew every trade route in the galaxy, and he was ready to use them to help Earth. These people didn't know each other before Dusthaven. They came from different places with different jobs, but they shared one thing: the The Zorak had taken someone they loved. That pain brought them together. They weren't here to cry or shout. They were here to make a plan, a secret one that the Zorak would never see coming. James stood up first, his voice clear in the quiet room. "We all know why we're here," he said. "The Zorak hurt our people. They think we're weak. They think we'll do nothing, but they're wrong." Everyone nodded, their faces serious. James pointed to a big screen on the wall. It showed a map of the galaxy with Zorath, the Zorak planet, glowing red. "We can't fight them with big armies yet," he said. "But we can be smart. We can hit them where it hurts." Emma spoke next. She held up her tablet showing a picture of a small device. "This is a disruptor," she said. "It can turn off Zorak machines without breaking them. I've already used it on their supply station, Red Fang." The others leaned forward, interested. "We can make more," Emma said. "We can send them to their bases, their ships, their factories. They'll think their machines are failing, but it'll be us." Carlos raised his hand, his eyes on his laptop. "I've been inside their computers," he said. "Their systems are strong, but they have weak spots. I can send fake messages to their ships, make them go to the wrong places. I can lock their doors, turn off their lights. They won't know it's me." The others smiled. Carlos was young, but his skills were powerful. Amara tapped the table. "My fleet is ready," she said. "We're hiding near Dusthaven behind asteroids. We can drop supplies to the miners and keep the Zorak away. My pilots are fast. We can hit their ships and be gone before they fire back." Lily nodded, her eyes bright. "I'm flying with you," she said. "My scout ship can dodge anything. We'll keep them guessing." Omar leaned back, thinking. "The Zorak needs supplies," he said. "Fuel, food, tools. I can talk to other planets, get them to stop trading with the Zorak. No supplies, no power. They'll get weak fast." Sophia looked up from her book. "I can help with that," she said. "I know leaders on Vara and other planets. They don't like the Zorak. I can get them to join us quietly." Ravi held up his sketch. "I'm building shields," he said. "They can protect our ships from Zorak weapons. I'm also making tiny robots that can sneak into their bases and break things. They're small, like bugs, but they work." Tarek grinned. "I can fly those robots anywhere," he said. "My cargo ship looks normal. No one will suspect me." Hana stepped forward, her voice soft but strong. "I've been on Zorak outposts," she said. "I know how they work, where they keep their weapons, how they move. I can go back, find their plans, and tell you where to hit next." Everyone looked at her, impressed. Hana was brave, moving through enemy places like a shadow. James listened to everyone, his face calm. "Good," he said. "We don't need a big war. We need small, smart moves. We'll make the Zorak confused, weak, scared. They'll think twice before hurting humans again." He pointed to the map. "We start with their weak spots, supply lines, communication towers, fuel depots. We hit them fast, then disappear." The group spent hours planning. They drew lines on the map, marking Zorak bases and ships. Emma and Ravi worked on new gadgets, their heads closed together. Carlos typed on his laptop, pulling up Zorak schedules. Amara and Lily talked about flight paths, their voices quick and excited. Omar and Sophia listed planets to contact, making a list of friends in the galaxy. Hana shared what she saw on Zorak outposts, pointing out doors and guards. Tarek mapped out trade routes to sneak supplies and robots. James walked around the table, listening, giving ideas. The plan was simple but clever. They wouldn't fight the Zorak head-on. They would chip away at their strength like water wearing down a rock. A ship would go missing here. A station would go dark there. A factory would stop working. The Zorak would look for enemies, but they wouldn't find any. The humans would stay hidden, striking quietly, moving fast. One big part of the plan was Dusthaven. The miners there were still scared, but they needed help. Amara's fleet would keep dropping food and medicine, showing the miners they weren't alone. Carlos would send messages to Dusthaven's radios, telling them to stay strong. The humans wanted the Zorak to know Dusthaven wasn't forgotten. It was a symbol, a place where the fight began. Another part of the plan was to make the Zorak nervous. Hana would sneak onto more outposts, leaving small signs, a cut wire, a missing tool. The Zorak would start checking everything, wasting time. Emma's disruptors would turn off machines at random, making the Zorak think their technology was failing. Carlos would hack their screens, showing strange messages or blank maps. The Zorak would feel like they were losing control, and that was exactly what the humans wanted. Omar and Sophia's job was to get other planets on Earth's side. They wouldn't ask for armies, just small things. No trade with the Zorak, no fuel for their ships. If enough planets joined, the Zorak would run out of supplies. They'd have to fix their own problems before they could hurt anyone else. This wasn't about fighting. It was about making the Zorak weak from the inside. The meeting went late into the night. The bunker was quiet, but the room was alive with ideas. Papers covered the table, filled with sketches and notes. The map on the screen glowed with new lines and dots. Everyone was tired, but no one wanted to stop. They thought about Layla, Gyro, Maria, Malik, Aisha, Tom, Elena, Leo, Sarah, and Samir. Those 10 names gave them strength. They weren't just fighting for themselves. They were fighting for everyone the Zorak had hurt. James stood up again, looking at each person. "This is our plan," he said. "It's not loud, it's not big, but it will work. We'll show the Zorak what humans can do. We'll show the galaxy that no one hurts our people and gets away with it." The others nodded, their faces fierce. They didn't cheer or clap. They didn't need to. They knew what to do. As the meeting ended, everyone got to work. Emma and Ravi went to a lab to build more disruptors and shields. Carlos stayed in the bunker, his laptop humming as he hacked. Amara and Lily left for their ships, ready to fly. Omar and Sophia started calling other planets, their voices calm but firm. Hana slipped out, heading for a Zorak base. Tariq loaded his cargo ship with supplies and robots. James stayed in the bunker, watching the map, ready to guide them all. The Zorak didn't know about the bunker. They didn't know about the round table or the map. They thought the humans were quiet because they were scared. But the humans weren't scared. They were planning, working, moving. The secret meeting was over, but the fight was just starting. Earth was ready, and the Zorak were about to find out how strong humans could be.